Well, good afternoon and welcome to Let's Talk on WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. We have a great lineup of guests for you all today and some great conversations. Of course, there's some hot news out there, so we're going to take a short segment of the program before we get started to talk with our senior reporter, Stacey Brown. But I want to tell you who some of our guests are today. Our first segment is sponsored by AARP-DC. Louis Davis Jr., the organization's state director, will be with us to talk about AARP's Voters Guide. That's available now in preparation for the upcoming June 4 primary. Mark Hudson, executive director of Tudor Place, will be joined by Dr. Christy Pichichero, Tudor Place board president, to share the inspiring story of Tudor Place and its Ancestral Spaces. Pride Week kicks off today with an array of events celebrating DC's LGBTQ community, and Ryan Bos, executive director of Capital Pride Alliance, will update us on what's in store for the week as it kicks off today, Friday, June 1st. Well, actually, today is the 31st, but it'll kick off tomorrow. I think there's an event. Anyway, that's why you have to stay tuned so you can find out what's happening with Capital Pride Week and to hear from Ryan Bos. I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of the most recent issue of the Washington Informer. As you know, I love to show the print edition. So I'm going to do this every week, so you all could even do this with me. As a matter of fact, you all might want to do that for me. If you get a copy or read the Washington Informer, you know, in the paper every week, we have a look who's reading the Washington Informer. Feel free to send us a selfie. We'd love to get one from you that shows you with your Washington Informer newspaper. We'll probably use it during the show, maybe even publish it in the newspaper, but we would love to get those selfies from you. And you can send it to news, N-E-W-S, at WashingtonInformer.com. And once a month, as you know, we publish The Bridge, our publication that's targeted to the millennial community. And this issue of The Bridge is, this is not the cover, but this is it. Of course, this is the editor, publisher Lafayette Barnes, with a very great commentary that he puts in The Bridge every week. So if you get the Washington Informer, you get a twofer this week. You get the Informer and The Bridge. So we hope you'll pick one up today. And if you don't like reading the print edition, and we know that there are a lot of you all that don't, you can get your digital copy by visiting our website at WashingtonInformer.com. We ask you to go to the website. And as a matter of fact, if you're not a subscriber, which is free, there'll be a little box that pops up, and we ask you to just click onto that box, put your email address in, and we will gladly send you the Washington Informer to your email box every week. In addition, you'll be getting WIN Daily, which is our daily updates of news and information here in the DMV. And for those who are kind of trying to figure out what's going on in the DMV on a social side, you'll also get some, what we call some offers, some deals and offers. So we'll send that to you as well. So we look forward to you being a part of the Washington Informer community. In addition, you know, I always got to put those asks in, and I do it early. It's like taking collection at church. We want you to share today's broadcast on your social media platforms and follow us on Facebook, IG, X, TikTok, Threads, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Wherever you are, we are. And we want to make sure that you are able to access the news that we produce every week. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV, no spaces, one word, Washington Informer TV. We are still trying to get that number up to 1,000 subscribers, and you can help us get there. So go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So before we get started with our program, it's my pleasure to bring on Curtis Knowles with our weekly news broadcast.
This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News. 7 D.C. agencies are set to receive a substantial boost in funding, totaling nearly $7 million, aimed at expanding housing counseling services for underserved communities. Among the beneficiaries include the Housing Counseling Services, the National Coalition for Asian Pacific American Community Development, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and DBA NeighborWorks America. Vice President Kamala Harris and HUD Acting Secretary Adrian Todman disclosed that the Biden-Harris administration will allocate almost $40 million to broaden comprehensive housing counseling services nationwide. The funds administered through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Office of Housing Counseling will facilitate counseling services catering to the needs of homebuyers, homeowners, and renters. When D.C. resident Essie Graber first received her diagnosis of stage 3 stomach cancer, she had no frame of reference to pull from. She sought the community of residents who were also fighting cancer, and so she founded the virtual support service of Cancer Support Community DC. After much support she received online, Graber was present as the Cancer Support Community DC recently inaugurated its first ever location in the historic Anacostia community, serving residents facing the most prevalent health disparities in the city. The center offers cancer patients across the DC metropolitan area disease navigation and support services at no cost. The nonprofit organization was eager to stake their claim in the east of the river community, hoping to help combat the grave statistics showing that the highest cancer mortality rates are in Ward 8. The U.S. House of Representatives voted on May 23rd to nix the ability of non-citizens in the District of Columbia to vote in local elections, 262 to 143, with 25 members abstaining. Essentially, in the district, non-citizens can vote for any public office in the district except for federal positions such as the president, delegates of the U.S. Congress, and the shadow statehood senators and representatives. The House vote took place a little less than 2 weeks before the district would hold its primary on June 4th, and Republicans had a 210 vote, with 52 Democrats joining them in passing the legislation. The bill, however, still needs to go through the Senate.
Thank you so much, Curtis. Well, I know everyone heard the breaking news yesterday. It was about the 34-count felony conviction of former President Donald Trump. It's news that's reverberating all across the country, probably around the world. And joining us for a brief discussion is Stacey Brown, senior reporter for Black Press USA and host of Let It Be Known, a daily broadcast available on Facebook and YouTube. And where else, Stacey Brown?
All those places you listed before.
Oh, wonderful. Fantastic. Welcome. I'm glad you had a few minutes because I listened to your show this morning. I know you were fired up about this conviction. Bring us up to date, Stacey, on what we heard yesterday.
Yeah, so 34 counts, like you said, all felony counts too, which is significant. The jury took 9.5 hours over 2 days, and they came back with 34 counts. This is really related to the 2016 election, which people said he stole from Hillary Clinton. Well, this jury agreed. And part of that was this is campaign finances. Yeah, it had a lot to do with his extramarital affair with the adult film actress and the hush money payments. That really opened the gates for prosecutors to get a big picture look into this, what turns out to be campaign finance fraud in New York City.
Stacey, you said something, and I want to know because Donald Trump has a way of denying everything, but you said extramarital affair. Isn't he saying that it's alleged that it never happened?
Well, so now that the convictions are there, and it's proof that these payments were made based on eyewitnesses' testimony on both sides, and more importantly, the jury's decision, you no longer have to say alleged.
Okay.
So you're
well, he will, but go ahead.
You're within your rights. But the thing is, like you said, he doesn't take responsibility. He hasn't taken responsibility. And this is the first time in his entire life, and Donald Trump is 77 years old, that he's been held accountable for something. So what happens next is really the big question. Could he go to jail? Possible.
Well, and I understand that for each count, he's eligible for 3 to 4 years of imprisonment on each count.
But in a case like this, financial crimes, a first-time offender, any sentence will probably run concurrently and not consecutively, which means that for every sentence on each of those 34 counts, if it's 2 years per, it will be just 2 years, meaning he'll do it all at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay.
But he's, with that said, he's scheduled to be sentenced on July 11th, which is only a couple of days before the Republican convention, where he's formally nominated as the Republican nominee. So it's going to be interesting that you'll have a convicted felon become the nominee for a major party in the race for presidency in American history, almost 250 years of history. But this will happen on July 11th. And again, will he go to prison? Probably not. This is probably, the judge will probably give him probation. But he's had a habit, having said that, Denise, he's had a habit of really upsetting this judge, breaking all the gag order rules, breaking all of the decorum rules, attacking the jury, attacking the judge, attacking the judge's family. These judges are human, and he might be inclined to send him to jail.
Well, at the same time, as we move forward, because the one thing I can say that Donald Trump is, I don't think there's any argument about, is that the court of final opinion or the jury of final opinion will be those voters that go to the polls on November the 5th.
Yes.
So regardless of him being a convicted felon, regardless of all the cases that he's still facing in Florida, Atlanta, where are the other places?
And Washington,
and DC, right here in DC. But the court of final opinion will be on November the 5th. And it's been real interesting to me to hear his followers, the members of the Republican Party, the members of Congress, who are really have a airtight, I won't say airtight, but it's a very tight agreement. And I'll say, what is it? The way they articulate, their support for the president. It's almost like it's a script. It's scripted.
Yeah. Tim Scott, the senator out of South Carolina, was on a social media platform and clearly reading a script in his support of Trump. And it's very interesting to see a Tim Scott, someone who is an African-American, who talked about the justice system being unfair to this man. Well, we never hear Tim Scott talk about the millions of cases of other African Americans who the justice system has betrayed over and over again. But yet and people have to understand something that's very important, Denise. One of the arguments they're making is Biden's Department of Justice, This is a political. Well, this was not Biden's Department of Justice, this particular case. This was a state case brought by a district attorney, a local district attorney. Same with down in Georgia.
In his home state.
Mm-hmm. And so that is being lost in all of the disinformation and misinformation that they are spewing. This was a state case. The Department of Justice had nothing to do with it. Now, what the Department of Justice does have to do with is the case that's happening in Florida, that the judge, who is a Trump appointee and a proclaimed and avowed Trump supporter, has not allowed that to go forward. The case in Washington is also a federal case. So they haven't even gotten to, and may not get to those cases. It depends on if Trump wins the election or not. If he wins the election, those cases will never happen.
So, Stacey, before we close out, I know you can't predict anything, because nobody would have predicted that he would have gotten, across the board 34 count conviction. I think that surprised not only Donald Trump, but all the rest of us. But at the same time, I'm looking at November 5th. And what impact do you think this is going to have on voter turnout? Is this the spark that the American electorate needed to actually go out to the polls, or is this the water that sort of kills the fire that makes folks say, I'm leaving it alone?
So there is a swath of voters who have said that they won't vote for him if he's convicted. But do you trust that? It's hard to trust that when this is the front runner. He's not only the presumptive Republican nominee, but every single poll, whether you trust the polls or not, every single poll has him leading President Biden in the general election. This is the man who's publicly said he can sexually assault women, grab them by their private parts. This is a man who has been twice found by a jury responsible for sexual assault, twice impeached, indicted, 86 felony counts. And yet he is the front runner. So I don't buy that now that we got this conviction in New York, that folks who are saying now that they're going to vote for him, who said 2 days ago they were going to vote for him, that they've changed their mind because of this conviction. So the Biden-Harris campaign has a tough road to hoe, as they say, a tough hill to climb, and they need to really use this to their advantage if they expect to make any inroads into defeating Donald Trump once and for all.
Well, we can't really talk about it today because we just wanted to kind of jump in and do have this conversation because of the breaking news yesterday. But as we know, and I'm gonna use my real technical term here, goo gobs of money is being raised.
Without question. 34 million yesterday, the massive 34 convictions.
And I'm curious, I really would like for us to follow the money. Where is it going? And those insurrectionists who hope that they would get their cases covered, their lawyers' fees and what have you, I don't think they've gotten a drop. And taxpayers are the ones that are really paying the cost for all of this. So we want to talk about that a little bit more, maybe the next time. Or even if we don't talk about it, I would ask folks to watch Let It Be Known and tell them where they can find the program.
7:30 a.m. Eastern. If you want to watch it live, Facebook, YouTube at Let It Be Known News. Subscribe, like Denise said, subscribe to Win TV, but also subscribe to Let It Be Known News. And of course, Instagram, you name it. Just catch us every weekday. If you want to catch us live at 7:30 a.m. I know it's getting up early, but it starts your day with some headlines from Black newspapers. We usually use a lot of headlines from The Informer, included in our headlines. So join us.
Stacey Brown, thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
I know that there's a press conference. I don't know if it started yet, but I'm going to let you get back to it.
All right. Thanks, Denise.
All righty. Thank you. So now we're going to turn actually where I think what is most important is voter turnout and voter participation, which is why I'm really excited that our next guest is joining us, who is Lewis Davis, who's the state director of AARP DC. But before we bring Lewis on, let's look at this short video.
The district's June 4th primary election to determine who will be on the ballot in November is quickly approaching. And AARP DC wants to make sure you are prepared to vote and know where the candidates stand on issues you told us were most important. AARP is a nonpartisan organization, does not operate a political action committee, and does not endorse candidates. We focus on the issues that are most important to you and your family. Using AARP research and survey data, AARP DC created a questionnaire for all the candidates listed on the primary ballot to share with you their vision for the issues you told us matter most. They include transportation, housing, accessing nutritious foods, and reducing health disparities. Look through the candidates' responses and use that information to inform your vote when you cast your ballot on or before June 4th of 2024.
It's my pleasure now to bring on Lewis Davis, the state director of AARP. Lewis, I'm going to nominate you for an Emmy for one of the best political campaign commercials I've seen so far this year.
One of the best non-political political.
I love it. I mean, that's what we ought to be talking about. People make their choices in their households or, wherever, but, our choice is that folks go out and vote. So I want to thank you so very much for joining us. Sure. And before we get into the topic, I just want to ask you very briefly, because I still think we need to dispel the belief that AARP is only for a certain age group. If a person, tell us who can be a member of AARP and AARP DC?
So let me dispel the myth that an old myth that you have to be 60 and older. Boy, that one's more than 20 years old. Then the next one was that you have to be 50 and older, when the truth today is you have to be a whopping 18 and older. You heard it right. A 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 37-year-old, a 41-year-old can join AARP. You just go to, we don't sell memberships or promote memberships in the state offices. Anyone curious about what an AARP membership is can just visit aarp.org and learn all about it. But yeah, it's that simple. It's one of the cheapest, most inexpensive memberships too on the planet. And it's less than $20 a year, not a month, but a year. and with tremendous discount benefits. But more importantly, I think for the work we do here in the District of Columbia and around the state offices around the country, the membership dues help to fuel what ARP is most about, and that is helping people, particularly people 50 and older, in terms of advocacy, live their best lives and their families, which would include, again, those 18-year-olds and on up, live their best lives through the advocacy and outreach work that we do around the country. So it fuels, it's the gasoline that keeps us going to fight the fight that we fight to help people live their best lives at any age.
Well, for those who I know are members of AARP and very active across the city, that Fuel has created a very strong organization. And I think that strength also goes to what we're facing right now, which is the June 4th primary in the District of Columbia. And we're going to talk about the voter's guide that you all produced in a few minutes. But I wanted to start off really with, as we said, the mechanics of this voting in this primary. And so I know that there's some general things that you all are informing your members and others about, but I want to specifically kind of key in on those who are elderly or may have some disability in getting to the polls or voting. What are some of the things that you would recommend or suggest that people should know?
Sure. The first thing I'll recommend is to go to the experts themselves, and that's the good folk at the DC Board of Elections. If we were a state like like all the rest in the country, we would be near the top, certainly in the top 5 of the easiest and most efficient places to vote in the country. The DC Board of Elections does an excellent job with making the ease with which one can vote. It couldn't make it any easier, let's put it that way. Let me give you a telephone number, if you could write this down, and I'll give you an email address for the Board of Elections. And the telephone number is 202-727-2525. Again, that's 202-727-2525. Their email address is www.org, www.dcboe, that's Board of Elections, BOE.org. If you're inclined to go online, go there, because there's a wide assortment of information there about all of the variety of ways and extra things they do to make it easy to vote. But let me just name what I know off the top. And I was a precinct captain during the pandemic in 2020. So I know there's curbside voting. Right, you can, if you have a disability that prevents you from getting up out of your car, but you're able to drive to a voting place, they will come out to your car to take your ballot through the window, through your door window. How about that? We, ARP, lobbied 4 years ago and got the Board of Elections to visit assisted living facilities. And so they now go to assisted living facilities, collect ballots from assisted living facilities. The voting boxes are all around the District of Columbia. For several elections now, you can vote in any place you live in the District of Columbia, in any place in the District of Columbia. So if you live in Ward 8, and you happen to be at the hair salon in Ward 4, and you have your ballot with you, you can drop your ballot at a ballot box in Ward 4, even though you live in Ward 8. Can't get any easier than that. But if you have a particular situation, I would call the DC Board of Elections, again, at 202-727-2525. Tell them what your particular situation is. You can vote early. If early voting has already started, I voted nearly 2 weeks ago. So the election cycle now is long. The 4th is the last day you can vote. It's not the first day you can vote. It's the last day you can vote. The boxes are up and around at every public library all around the District of Columbia, and you can vote in any one of them. Plus, you can mail in your ballot as well.
I'm one of those people, Louis, who just loves to vote on election day. But when you put it that I'm the last one to vote, I'm thinking a little differently about that. I hadn't heard it put that way before. So I see why we have early and the last day. But I think that's a good point for people to remember that June 4th is election day, but it's the last day to vote. So that commercial or that video we saw a little while ago really focused in on the voter's guide that you all recently, that AARP-DC recently produced. And it's really exciting. It's good information. But tell us, when did you all decide to do this? How did you, again, repeat how you came up with the questions that are being asked in this guide? And what the participation was like
Sure.
for the candidates who are running.
So if we do anything at AARP is we listen to our members and others here in the District of Columbia and around the country, but here in DC who are 50 and older and the people in their lives. So we do surveys, questionnaires all the time. So we began doing these surveys last year and into the beginning of this year. From the responses we got back about what people care most about. And in those surveys, we generated a questionnaire to go to the candidates across all open seats or seats up for election in the DC primary. Those candidates numbered at that time 20. It started out being more, but these are the candidates who got approved by BOE. They had the proper number of signatures and the like. So we waited until the Board of Elections verified who the candidates were. They numbered 20, and that's across the ward races in 2, 4, 7, and 8, plus one at-large seat. We didn't. These were just the council seats. This was not the state reps and shadow senators. And 17 of the 20 responded. If there was an 18th or 19th or 20th who meant to, well, we don't know. But we got 17. We were happy with that. That's better than the 75% response rate. The questions and the top issues or areas of concern we got back from our survey were transportation, housing, access to nutritious foods, and health disparities. And so there was a question we built that we put out in our survey that we tweaked a little bit to then change to make into a question for the candidates. And so I can give you an example.
Yeah, I was going to ask for that. Yeah.
So the transportation question was, in 2022, 85% of DC residents 45 and older said that staying in your own home as you get older was of importance to them. What policies do you support to protect older district residents and their ability to safely age in a place of their choosing was the housing question. And then the candidates had space of 500 characters to answer for each of the questions, and one for each of the topical areas I mentioned a moment ago. And we in no way edited. We didn't correct typos or bad grammar. We told them that up front. So every candidate got the exact same email from me saying you have an invitation, click this link, and we gave them a due date to respond. And we cut them at 500 characters, not 500 words, but 500 characters. So you can visit this and see this by going to AARP or www.aarp.org/DC primary. That's aarp.org/DC primary, DC primary altogether. And it'll pull down the full voter guide that you just saw the flash up there on the screen. You'll see all the candidates' answers when you click on the ward race. You click on the race. If you click on Ward 2, there's no race in Ward 1. Ward 2, it'll pull up all the candidates running in Ward 2 who responded. Same for 7, 8, and the at-large seat.
I had a chance to go through that yesterday, and again, I'm going to go through because it's a really well done site, and I think it's very easy to get through for anybody who might be wanting to visit it online. There are no printed copies of this, right?
No, they're not.
Okay.
We made it available digitally, and yeah.
So anybody that wants to access it, there's no, you don't have to be an AARP member to read it. Just go to the site. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a little off, sort of our script here, Louis. But I just want to ask, because the question that you raised about, older people living in, staying in place is a critical issue also of AARP. I mean, like you said, that question came from your membership. But do you track that? Does AARP, let's say if a candidate says, I'm going to do blah, 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 and they actually, are successful in the election, how do you track that information or their progress or their legislation or anything it's almost like a report card. Does AARP do that?
Yeah. So we do.
Okay.
Here in the District of Columbia.
I should say AARP DC, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, here in the District of Columbia, because there's 53 state offices.
Exactly.
But here in my office, we do. And,
okay.
and that's a great segue. I didn't know you were going to go there, but to your listeners, as a reminder that after you vote, to me, personally and professionally, that's the beginning of your participation in our democracy, small d, not the end. And I wish more people knew that, because in Denise's question was an answer that it's up to every individual voter to follow and make sure that the candidates you vote for, in fact, things they sold you on, right? Every candidate will tell you some things, a lot of times things that they know you want to hear. And there's nothing wrong with that if the thing that you hear is the thing that you think will make your life better. But then if you just trust and put all the faith that they'll do the good thing and you vote and then you go off to the races and fishing and you don't keep track of whether or not that thing they promised actually materializes, well, then you haven't fully participated in the democratic process against small d, because you have to help keep them accountable. And it doesn't mean that they're always nefarious in what they do, but they have a lot of competing interests coming at them. So that thing that they maybe meant to do that made you vote for them, they need your help to keep them honest on that thing. Maybe just to remember that they said they would do that thing. And you do that in the same way that we do. We monitor what the council does, whatever and however they're in session. We monitor the budget every year that the mayor produces every year and that the council then responds to, which is happening right now. And it's been said and still true that a budget is a set of policies in numbers. So a budget is a set of policies put in numbers. So you'll see whether that candidate had as your priority the issue they promised they would do when they got your vote. You have to watch and help them to keep their word.
So for those who just really want to see the progress, maybe they haven't been paying as close attention, but can they depend or go to a place on AARP's website to see kind of how this candidate is progressing in the key areas that AARP members thought were important?
They can. So we'll be after the general election. We had 17 candidates respond. There's a bunch of people running for a much smaller number of seats. We'll be watching the candidates on these questions and their responses. You can help us to do that by being some of our eyes and ears and reaching out to our office at aarp.org/DC. I'm easy to find. You can reach out to me individually and say, hey, Louis, candidate X said they would do Y and they didn't, they did D, and I wanted them to do C. We're all in this together, and that's what democracy small d is. It's a participatory sport, not a spectator sport.
Well, that is a great note to close on. I want to thank you for being with us, Louis Davis, AARP DC State Director. And we're going to put up one more time how folks can get a copy or read the voter's guide. I want to thank you for sponsoring the segment as well. And we look forward to seeing you on the other side. I know we're going to have this conversation before we roll up to the general election in November.
Happy to be here anytime.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Goodbye, all.
Bye-bye. So, don't forget, we're going to keep reminding you. Well, we can't because actually June 4th is Tuesday. So we'll remind you off and on during this program that you need to go out and vote on June 4th. So now I am so excited to bring to you our next guest, Executive Director Mark Hudson, and Board President Christy Pichichero of Tudor Place. I hope I said that right, Christy.
You got it. You got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us today. And I know you all kind of, know who's going to answer questions, so I'm just going to put them out there. I will say that I did get a chance to get a sneak look at Tudor Place, a wonderful place, I'll say, right in the middle of the District of Columbia that so many people don't know about. So we're happy to hear for you to be here to tell us what Tudor Place is and what is its mission.
Well, thank you so much, Denise, for having us on the show today. And thank you for coming out. Yes, so Tudor Place is a historic home museum and a 5.5-acre garden right in the middle of Georgetown, located at 1644 31st Street between Q Street and R Street. And our mission is to preserve the stories of 6 generations of descendants of Martha Washington and the enslaved and free African descended people who lived and worked there. We are leaders in historic preservation, conservation, sustainability, and inclusive educational programming for all ages and communities. And our motto, which I love as a historian, I'm a professor, associate professor of history, French, and African American studies at George Mason University in Fairfax. Our motto is America's story lives here, because Tudor Place's history makes visible all the layers of America's history, from the pre-colonial age when indigenous Native American tribes lived on these lands, to the time of the founding fathers and slavery, up through today. So it is a place and a history for and about all of us.
That that's one reason why I wanted to come and visit, because it's amazing that we have such an amazing entity right here in our city. And as you know, the Washington Informer does an annual African American Heritage Tour. A lot of it is the places where we walk and shop, and we're walking the footsteps of so much history, and we don't even know it. We overlook it. So I think it's amazing that you are here to share this with us, Mark. Why? Tell us, what's coming up. What are you all doing there at Tudor Place to try to get people in to see this jewel in our city?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having us here, Denise, and happy to share with people what's happening at Tudor Place. So right now we're wrapping up our field trip season. We have hundreds of students primarily from throughout the District of Columbia, but from elsewhere also, who are coming here. We do have a focus on Title I schools, so particular outreach to some of the schools where students don't have a lot of opportunities for field trips like this. One of the really featured activities we have right now is called Ancestral Spaces. And this is a combination of an installation in the historic house, as well as a guided tour experience that is focusing upon the people of African descent of Tudor Place. And the traditional narrative of this historic site has focused upon the 6 generations of the white Peter family who lived here. So we've kind of turned this on its head, and looking at the history of the site from the perspective of people principally who were enslaved here, or in one case, a person who was a freed slave who served here in the period after enslavement. So it is a way to look at the historic house very differently. It's a way that we can share more of the stories. And I think one of the things that has been quite interesting to us in having this experience is that visitors, after they've had the Ancestral Spaces experience, want to talk about it. They want to share what their reflections are, what their experience has been, and that's really gratifying. That's a lot of why we're here. We want to have a positive impact on people's lives and address some of the social injustice in the world around us. And so we have found that this program is doing that.
Dr. Christy and Mark, one of the things that I'm always, because I love, that's why we created our tour. And one of the frustrations that I used to have back in the day that's changing now, and I want you all to address that, is that you would go to these historic places, maybe old plantations or what have you, and there was always this, the slaves lived over there.
Yeah.
And that was the extent of the conversation. There was nothing that was developed to show what the life was like for them, or where they lived, or any more about them. It was just they lived over there. And here you all seem to have kind of pulled that together and even found some of the ancestors of the enslaved and others who lived there or worked there. Talk about that a little bit, because I want people to come. We're going to do our tour there, but I want people to come and see.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much. And yes, this is such an important place and moment for Black history. So we have to remember that in addition to the white descendants of Martha Washington who were on this site starting in 1805, there were also generations of Black individuals, of African American individuals, free and enslaved, who built the place, who lived at the site, or who lived in the neighborhood of Georgetown, a historic Black neighborhood, and who worked on the site, caring for the home, caring for the gardens, pouring their creativity and their love into these spaces, and caring for people. And so what we want to communicate is that these individuals, these African-American individuals, are as important to the history of America and to the history of Tudor Place as the owners of the property, as the founders of the nation. So we know the institution of slavery fractured families and caused devastating trauma. Indeed, some of the first Black individuals at Tudor Place were sent from George Washington's plantation at Mount Vernon. And there was movement of these individuals from Tudor Place out to plantations. So despite this fracturing and the horrors of being owned by another person, these African-American individuals managed to impact the world around them and to maintain enduring kinship and community bonds. And we're so proud of this exhibit that was created by our curatorial team, led by Rob DeHart with Yana Recco, because it was done in collaboration with descendants, as you just mentioned, Denise, of these African-American individuals, including Ann Chin, Geraldine Cole, and Carl Haynes, who I know is going to be joining you on a future episode, which is so great. So this tour, we've taken over the main house. I just was at Monticello, and it's just what you were saying, Denise. The enslaved individuals and their story are interpreted in different spaces, not in the main house at all. Well, we went radical and took over the main house in ways that are, which is where these people worked and lived. So the fact of interpreting it otherwise is taking them out of the story. So we're just doing proper history right now in order to look at the historic house and gardens with these folks as a part of it, as they were, and see how they impacted the world around them, uncover their legacy. The visit features beautiful and highly expert work, carpentry work by Sam Collins, the stories of Sally Twine, Hannah Pope, Barbara Pope Williams, and of course the beloved gardener John Luckett, who also cared and had relationships with the Peter family children, these children who are descendants of Martha Washington. So we are truly honored and committed to be showcasing these families, bringing their stories to the forefront of history where they should be.
So that was wonderful, Christy. I mean, I was going to say, I wish we had recorded it, but we did record it. So we're going to make sure folks can hear that. And Mark, before we close, again, just tell us how long. I know that this exhibit may be closing soon. I was really excited to meet, while I was there, a young woman there on one of the dining room table or something. There's a floral arrangement, which was done sort of in, I can't remember how she described it, but sort of, depicting, I don't know museum talk, but depicting, depicting the items. You can tell us about that, but tell us how long can folks see this? Of course, we're going to do our tour, but how does this?
Yeah, so and the particular item you're talking about is referred to as an ancestral altar. And so it's basically a dried flower work that is reflective of the experiences of people of African descent at Tudor Place. So Ancestral Spaces has been extended through the middle of October. And so people still have plenty of time to come here. One of the reasons we extended it, there was such great interest, not only from the public, but from representatives from other organizations who are coming, who have similar sites, who are coming, want to learn about what we have done here. And so the guided tours are provided on the hour from 10 until 4. The last tour is at 3 o'clock each day from Tuesday through Saturday, and noon to 4 on Sunday. And I would strongly recommend people go to our website And you can learn more about this tour, learn more about the experiences of enslaved people at Tudor Place. But it's also where I would recommend that you register for one of the tours, because they do tend to fill up quickly. So encourage people to register in advance for those.
Well, Dr. Christy and Mark, I want to thank you so very much for being with us today, for sharing this real treasure in our community, an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the District of Columbia and its really, really interesting history, and the role that so many of us played in building the city. So thanks for being with us. We're going to make sure that folks get there, but we'll see you soon. We're going to bring a crowd. So looking forward to having that opportunity. Anything you wanted to share before we close out?
Last thing I would say, I just encourage people again to go to our website. It's tudorplace.org. It's a great place again to learn about our organization and hopefully get engaged with us.
Great. And you'll find ways to donate and to volunteer and other things to make sure that we hold on to this treasure. All right. You all have a great day.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
All right. Thank you. Again, that's why we do our African American Heritage Tour. This will be our 12th year. We'll get some more information about it. We hope to go to Tudor Place. I discovered another place too, but I'm not going to tell you right now, because we want to make some connections and see how we can get folks out to visit. There's so many interesting African American historic sites in the District of Columbia and around the DMV. So stay tuned. Now, this weekend kicks off the Capitol Pride Week. I'm so excited to have with us Ryan Bos, Executive Director of the Capitol Pride Alliance. Ryan, welcome to Let's Talk. I need you to unmute yourself.
Thank you for having me, and happy Pride Month.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I'm surprised that you had a moment to talk with us, because I've looked at the calendar. It is so jam-packed with activities, and you're still smiling. So that's a great thing.
Yes, our first event actually is tonight. It's our annual Capitol Pride Honors, where we recognize individuals in the community that have supported the LGBTQ plus community through activism, through resources, through support and service, and kick things off for the week.
Wonderful. Tell us what is the mission and the goals of the Capitol Pride Alliance?
It's really to provide platforms for members of our community to be visible, to be heard, as well as finding ways for our community to work together, to collaborate, share resources that ultimately serve our residents and amplify our community and our society. So the biggest events that folks are aware that we do every year is the annual Capitol Pride celebration, which includes the parade and our big festival and concert. And something that we take huge pride in is that our festival and concert still remains free to the general public, to ensure accessibility, but also just an opportunity to bring folks into the space to learn, to celebrate, and be around people that support them.
This is a week of recognition and honor and celebration, but we know that even with the advantage of being in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., where the LGBTQ community is not as challenged as in other places, but there's still issues that I know that you all are addressing on behalf of the community, and others are joining you with that. So tell us a little bit about how you sort of support and advocate for the LGBTQ plus community.
With the parade and festival, these are places where many organizations, there'll be roughly 300 parade contingents consisting of local community organizations, to churches, to government agencies, corporations, businesses, as well as around 300 folks exhibiting at the festival. So this is an opportunity for folks to get their message out, to be heard. There'll be folks, I'm sure, in this parade. Definitely, Pride originated as a protest. It continues to be a protest. by just us gathering as community and being visible. So we encourage folks to continue to be vocal. In addition, we are part of an international association called Interpride. And if folks aren't aware, and you can see on my button, is we were awarded the opportunity to host World Pride. So next year in 2025, Capital Pride will become a World Pride. So as you can see in the banner, this year's theme is Totally Radical. That we kick off tonight with the honors and go through a variety of events throughout the week to our parade and festival. And then we will be transitioning through the year, so really promoting World Pride, bringing our international community together. Annually, we estimate around 650,000 folks engage in Pride in some capacity. And with World Pride, we are estimating up to 3 million folks we will be welcoming here to our nation's capital.
So I have to bring this out. This is probably a little known, I don't want to say Black history or DC history fact, but I know that the first Pride Parade, I think you had one well-known objector who was my dad, who was very upset because the parade was being held on Father's Day. And I mean, in the end, I think he became a real advocate and supporter, but heads, were bumped because of the date that was selected. I don't know what you all do now to kind of get that calendar. As one who does the MLK parade, we don't have a lot of choices in the day we select, but you all do. So, I'm just curious about, how you select it or how this time of year becomes the time to do the Pride Parade.
Yeah, well, Pride was born out of the Stonewall riots back in 1970 or 69. And then Pride was born the year after to commemorate that activism. And that event happened at the end of June. So that's why there are a lot of Pride that happen around the country, such as New York and San Francisco and Chicago, all the sort of the last weekend of the month. And you'll see a lot of prides, obviously, try to spread it out as much as possible in June. We now have, there's prides that happen later in the year as well. Again, to really make sure that folks know that we need to have Pride not just in June. We need to have Pride 365. We need to support our community 365. We need to be visible. We need to get out and vote this year. That's obviously a way that we need to advocate, and we'll encourage our community to get out and make their voices heard at the ballot box. Because as we all know, our rights as citizens are being threatened. There was progress that was made over the past 10 years, and that progress is, there are people actively trying to peel away those rights and those freedoms that we have earned, and to be acknowledged as humans. So we are fighting to not have that happen and to continue to expand rights and justice for all.
Well, we can totally understand and appreciate the work that you all do. Is it too late for people to participate in any parts of the I know your Pride Parade is like miles long with hundreds of groups, and it's really, really it's kind of a city celebration because you go through the heart of the city. I think, what is it, through Shaw and some other areas, but is it too late for folks to participate or to volunteer? And if so, how would they do so? If not, how would they do so?
Right. The parade and festival registration is closed, but there is other ways for folks to participate. You mentioned volunteering. We still need lots of volunteers. That is a great way, even as organizations, to come out as a group to help us marshal the parade, which is actually a new route this year. So if folks aren't aware yet, our parade will be still starting in the same location it has the last 2 years at 14th and T Streets Northwest. But we'll be going all the way down 14th Street to Pennsylvania Avenue. And we'll be turning left right at Freedom Plaza. And we'll finish at 9th and Pennsylvania. And this is a dress rehearsal for next year. because we know for World Pride, we wouldn't be able to do our normal route that goes through both the Logan and DuPont neighborhoods. So we are giving this a trial run to be able to accommodate larger crowds and to give both folks the local experience, because we have such a rich community in Washington, as well as obviously the responsibility we have as the nation's capital. So volunteer, capitalpride.org/volunteer, capitalpride.org to see all the many events that are taking place beginning this evening, not just during this week, but also through a lot of our partners in the community as well throughout the month.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so happy to have you with us today to share this event. I know what you're going through when it comes to trying to put a route together. And then, like you said, in view of the fact that the event that we'll be hosting in the district next year with all those people, yeah, my fingers will be crossed for you that everything works out and you come up with something that's really great. So
thank you. We're going to need the entire community to be a part of this. It's
yeah,
going to be definitely, it's something that we all can take pride in. And I did want to just mention one other thing that
sure.
is one of the legacies that we're hoping to gain through hosting World Pride and we're actively doing right now is our organization, along with our the DC LGBTQ plus community center. We have the highest percentage of LGBTQ out individuals in the country, but not necessarily the most adequate community center to meet the needs. So we have entered into a joint effort along with approximately 6 to 8 other organizations for a new community center that we will hopefully be opening up before the end of this year in the Shaw neighborhood, right next to Howard Theater. So one of the things that this Pride will be doing is raising much needed resources to make this community center a reality that can ultimately serve our community and that we can showcase for World Pride.
And we'll be able to find more information about that on the website?
That is correct, at capitalpride.org.
Okay, all right, well, that's good. We'll have a lot to talk about going forward. So, we'll just schedule some more time to talk about how this parade turned out, when you cut your ribbon for the community center, we want to make sure that we're there. And also as we build up to World Pride, so we want to be there as well.
That's great. Well, happy Pride, everybody.
Oh, Brian,
yes.
Chevry reminded me, how could we forget your grand marshals?
Oh.
I mean, well, you all struck gold this year.
Yes, we're excited. Billy Porter has been doing his Pride rounds throughout the country at various Prides. So we're honored to have him as one of our grand marshals. He'll also be performing on Sunday at the concert, as well as Kiki Palmer as a special guest. Will also be one of our grand marshals on Saturday for the parade and performing on Sunday at the concert. So we're very much honored to have them both participate along with our other performers. Expose for those from the 80s. We'll have a little throwback to be in our theme this year of Totally Radical, as well as Ava Max, which a lot of folks are excited about. And for those RuPaul Drag Race fans, Sapphira Crystal will be joining us as well.
Well, it's definitely a star-studded event with really big name folks that are coming and people who not just perform, but are advocates, for the rights and privileges of the LGBTQ plus community. So you picked carefully, you picked well, and looks like you're going to have a great event.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you out there.
All righty. Take care, Ryan.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I thank you. Thank you for watching Let's Talk. Thank you for the guests who joined us. We hope that you found our discussions today insightful and informative. We want to extend a special thanks to AARP for sponsoring our first segment. Thank you, Lewis Davis, Mark Hudson, Dr. Christy Pichichero, and Ryan Bos for sharing this. I want to make sure I say that right. Pichichero, right? I think I did it right. Okay, Christy Pichichero and Ryan Bos for sharing their expertise and experiences with us. I'm so glad Dr. Christy will let me call her Dr. Christy. So we've talked about voting. We've talked about where you can go and spend some time over the weekend at Tudor Place, as long as you go online and get your ticket and take the family. We're going to have a beautiful weekend. We've got information about the Capitol Pride parade that's coming up, or events coming up next week. So we've got things to help you to fill your calendar. And if you're looking for other things to fill your calendar, make sure you visit our calendar of events, our things to do at WashingtonInformer.com. Or if you pick up a copy of the Washington Informer, there's a page there that gives you all kinds of activities. We want to keep you engaged. Go out, have some fun, enjoy a rain-free day, hopefully, because I think we have one day that it's going to rain. But anyway, enjoy the weekend. That's all we have for you today. So thanks again for joining us at Let's Talk on WIN TV. As I said, have a great weekend. This is Denise Rollard Barnes signing off.